Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome my friend, Secretary Rice, to the stage. As everybody knows, Condoleezza Rice is a renowned American diplomat and political scientist. She was born in Birmingham, Alabama, served as provost of Stanford University, a U.S. National Security Advisor, was United States Secretary of State from 2001 to 2005, and currently serves as the director of the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. And most importantly, we're very pleased that, Condi has been a distinguished and long-term member of the C3 AI Board of Directors, I think since the very beginning, and become a close friend of all of us. So thank you, Condi. So Condi, how should we think, as we think about what's going on in this kind of very turbulent world, okay, how should we think about the intersection of what's going on in artificial intelligence and United States national security?
Great. Well, first of all, it's great to be here, and welcome to everyone. I always enjoy this conference, get a chance to learn a lot, and it's an exciting time. And I think that one of the realms in which it's most exciting for good or for bad is in national security. And I would make three quick points about it. The first is there is no transformative technology in human history that has not eventually ended up on the battlefield. Whether it is steel and iron, or nuclear, or mechanization, it's always ended up on the battlefield. And so will be the case for AI. The second point is, it's a question then of who gets there first. And I will assert that it will be better if democracies get there before authoritarians. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that, but the most important is that for all of its messiness and all of its difficulty, democracy has checks and balances. It has divided government in some cases. It has a free press. It has citizens that have views. And so even though we could go in the wrong direction with any of these technologies, the chances that a kind of omniscient and omnipotent single leader is more dangerous, I think, is absolutely the case. And so I ask you to do just a little thought experiment. Suppose the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany had gotten to the nuclear weapon first. We might have been living in a very different world. So my second point is better if democracies get there. The third is that I have a lot of confidence in the ability of democracies to do that, particularly the United States and its allies, but it's going to take some work. And the work that it's going to take is to transform our rather sometimes slow systems of the integration of new technology into our military, into our national security apparatus, not just the Pentagon, but the State Department and the Treasury and others that need to be transformed. And part of that is a question of whether or not we can get the right balance between what the government needs and what the private sector can provide. And the private sector can provide so much more now in this new realm. We just have to fully leverage it. And that will be our comparative advantage, is to fully leverage this extraordinary private sector in support of our national security goals.
As a political scientist, as a leader in the academy, as a former provost at Stanford University, how do you think about the free flow of information, as it relates to the international academic exchange? How do we balance that with the kind of geopolitical realities of the AI battlefield?
Well, it's challenging because universities, particularly American universities, but also Oxford, for instance, which is a center of AI research, we are open. we're open to the world. We believe that knowledge should have no boundaries. It should move freely, that's how knowledge actually progresses. That's how innovation takes place. We don't have, for instance, at Stanford, nationality tests for which students can be in our labs. We wouldn't say we've admitted a Chinese student and now that student can't be in this or that lab. So the whole normative framework of the university is to be open in the belief that that's the best way to get to answers, the best way to pursue truth. We now face, however, an adversary who has a quite different view of that, which is having been fully integrated into the international economy for now more than 30 years, having its students and others integrated into the framework of our most advanced research universities, a question does arise of how much of that knowledge is being transferred into the People's Liberation Army or into nefarious ways for the Chinese to now take advantage of us on the battlefield. So have we, in a sense, been writing our own death warrant, is one way to put it. Now, I'm still one who will defend and believes we're still better off to keep open. I do think that we have to acknowledge that this is a problem, especially because the Chinese have this notion of civil-military fusion. So any technology is supposed to be not just for civilian use, but also for military use. And so we have to recognize that, and we have to try to take precautions. But my view has been with the US government. I just had at Hoover the Five Eyes, the head of the Five Eyes. So the English-speaking intelligence agencies. They were brought out by Chris Wray, the FBI director. We sat on stage together and we talked about exactly this issue. Now I learned a very important thing, which was I was moderating. I had 45 minutes for this conversation. Spies don't talk. And 20 minutes into this conversation, I'd gone through all of my questions, and I thought, okay, now what I'm going to do. But it was actually a good conversation. And I said to them, you do realize, don't you, that if you think somebody is working for the PLA, don't give them a visa, we won't admit them, and then we won't have a problem. But you can't turn universities into intelligence agencies. We won't be good at it, we won't know what we're doing. And so it has to be a partnership, if you will, and sometimes part of the problem with intelligence agencies is they want to keep following something, and that would make us vulnerable. So it has to be a cooperative relationship. I think most people want to do the right thing. I now mean researchers and universities. We don't want to be taken advantage of by the Chinese to fuel the PLA, but we're going to need help in knowing when that is a problem. But bottom line, I'll still trust that openness is still our best posture, and that we will, with that openness and innovation, will outrun the other guys.
I remember at C3 in 2010, 2011, 2012, we were just swarmed by the Chinese. State Grid, South China Grid, they were there, scores of them at a time, all with their cameras, and with kind of great prospects of doing business in China. And for those of you who think back, China in 2010, 11 was kind of like Japan in 1990. It was just kind of on a 1988. I mean, it was just on a roll. And I remember you advising us at the board and the management team, saying, Tom, run, don't walk. Okay, this story does not end well. And you really, I remember you saying exactly then that this was going to come unglued in just the way China has been coming unglued, over that period of time. Maybe you could talk about that in terms of, population and, what Xi has been doing in control and the difference between the haves and the have-nots, and how has this developed? Why has it developed? And how do you think this story ends?
Well, let's start with the fact that China's achieved a great deal. 500 million people lifted out of poverty. 40 years ago, you wouldn't have thought of China as a major competitor for the United States. But as is often the case, we got carried away. China was going to become the world's largest economy. It was going to surpass the United States in all the frontier technologies. Xi Jinping, of course, talked up this idea that the West was flat on its back and that this was the Chinese century. And so we probably overestimated it because there were a couple of underlying problems that now have become surface problems we now know. The first of those is that when China under Deng Xiaoping decided to enter the international economy, it decided to do so on economic terms, but not on political terms. And there were those of us, and I count myself among them, who believed in the kind of integrationist narrative with China. I mean, after all, what were you going to do with 1.4 billion people? Were you going to try to keep them outside the system? It was better to have China in the tent than out of the tent. That's why we admitted them to the World Trade Organization before they had conformed their practices on intellectual property, for instance, or openness of markets, because we thought that the impact of being a part of the system would have a huge impact on China itself. And I had a kind of way of thinking about this. We would say you cannot have both economic liberalization and political control. And so we watched as China chose over a period of time economic liberalization. We saw the rise of an incredible private sector, particularly in the tech world, whether it was Tencent or Alibaba. We saw that there was a moment not too long ago when China dominated startups in online learning. And so it seemed to be going that way. Enter Xi Jinping. And he says, yes, you're right. You can't have economic liberalization and political control. Thank you very much. I'll take political control. And that's what you've seen now in China. And that's why you've seen the attacks on the private sector, because no authoritarian can accept an alternative power center. And somehow, if you really think Jack Ma just wanted to go be with his family, no. Jack Ma had become a symbol for Xi Jinping of this alternative power center. At the same time, Xi Jinping and China were saying to us, we're going to surpass you in all of those frontier technologies. I've told my Chinese friends, and I was considered a real friend of China. We had a good relationship. I've said, you know, that may be the dumbest speech I've ever heard anybody give. Because if Xi Jinping stands up and says, we're going to surpass you in AI and quantum, you really think that's not going to get our backs up? And now all of a sudden the United States kind of wakes up, and the US government, which by the way is not known for nuance, suddenly finds that we are funding technologies in China through venture, through private equity, that's probably leading China to get to the place that they actually believe they can. So now we get constraints on outbound investment and inbound investment now. We also see that, and COVID was really the wake-up call here, how'd that happen? That we're dependent for high-end chips on a place called TSMC. Oh, isn't that in Taiwan? And hasn't Xi Jinping made really clear that he has designs on Taiwan? Because if he's going to end up in the pantheon next to Mao, he's got to reunify China. They've already done it with Hong Kong. Taiwan is next. Oh, it's not such a great idea that we're dependent on chips. And now you get the effort to regain a lead in chip R&D and manufacture. And oh, by the way, how did our pharmaceutical supply chains get completely dependent on China? And so what you've now had is a reaction against all of that. And the Chinese suddenly find that their efforts to surpass us are actually now being resisted by the United States and its allies. And by the way, it's not just the United States. One of the other things that Xi Jinping's rather aggressive policies did, the so-called wolf warrior diplomacy, was if you go to a border that has been quiet for 40 years and beat up Indian soldiers, you give India reason to be a part of the Quad with the United States, Japan, and Australia. And so China has caused a reaction in the international system to its aggressiveness, to its policies in the South China Sea, 2 claims on territories that belong to Japan and the Philippines and others. Who would have thought that the Philippines and Vietnam would be asking for American military bases? So that's the story of a China that I think got very aggressive, that probably got out ahead of where it really was, and that caused a reaction. I'll make one final point. You know, whenever I hear what I call authoritarian envy, oh, they build such great airports. Have you seen their road system? It's amazing. Just say the following: one-child policy. Now, the one-child policy, brutally enforced in China, and now 34 million Chinese men don't have mates. China's demographic inversion is something that demographers don't see except in cases of war. And so policies by the Communist Party, policies by Xi Jinping in particular, who also got rid of everybody around him who might question him. And the problem is, if you're going to be omnipotent, you'd better be omniscient too. And very few human beings are. And so they've made mistake after mistake after mistake. It doesn't mean that they aren't still a very serious adversary. They're not the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a military giant and a technological and economic midget. That's not China. But it does mean that I think their rapid rise has been slowed.
Fascinating. Now, I know in your various leadership roles at Stanford, you're closely coordinated with John Etchemendy and Feifei and our friend Chris Manning at as it relates to human-centered AI. And one of the topics that you're involved in, and I know providing leadership in, is related to, the proper role of government, okay, in regulating AI. There's lots of discussion in the United States Congress and lots of discussion in the EU on the proper role of government in regulating AI. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Well, I would start by saying that I hope that those in government who are going to be regulators first take the time to understand what they're going to be regulating. And one of the things that we've done at Hoover, it's actually with the engineering school and also with HAI and Feifei and others, is we are issuing something called a Stanford Emerging Technology Review. It takes top 10 technologies, AI, synthetic biology, and others. It just tries to explain what are these, what's hype, what's not hype, what are some of the downsides. Because, they can spell AI in Washington now, but I'm not sure they still understand what it is. And so getting to the place that we can educate our policymakers. Now, the fact is, you won't educate all 100 senators and all 435 congresspeople. But if you can get a few who are willing to put in the time, and there are people like Senator Rounds and Senator Warner and Senator Young, who really want to put in that time, and they will build the staffs that understand. Now you've got a basis from which to regulate sensibly, because you do want to regulate downside if you can see it coming. But you also don't want to stand in the way of innovation by regulation. And one of my concerns, the EOs, the executive orders that have been issued by the Biden administration, I think are not terribly impactful. That maybe is not a bad thing early on. I do worry about EU regulation. And I worry in large part because with Great Britain out of the EU, and Great Britain a real center of this kind of innovation, you have the regulators in one place and you have the innovators in another. And that seems to me a bad match. I was recently in Paris and I was saying to my French counterparts, how much time do you actually spend talking to the people who are actually creating this technology? And so there needs to be a three-way conversation, government, the private sector, and society about these technologies. And I'm not sure right now that we have the right vehicles to do that. And so I would regulate sparingly while we're starting to see this unfold. And I'd just say if you add the international dimension to this, I don't think we've got much prospect of that, except I would love to see some international conversations that might say, we do want a norm that we don't want to cause mass casualties with these technologies. That might be a place to start.
So, as we power into the 2024 election cycle, to what extent in the United States, to what extent are you concerned about kind of AI rearing its ugly head in interfering with the democratic process? And as citizens, how do you think that we should react?
Right. Well, I think Chris mentioned it. We have the potential for fake videos. We have the potential certainly for faked voice. I actually have a colleague at Stanford who has been very involved in helping the Ukrainians. And this is well known. And someone pretending to be him was on with the Ukrainian Deputy Minister of Defense. And this person thought that it was Mike McFaul who's talked about this. And the only way that the Ukrainian knew that that wasn't who it was that this person started asking about things like troop deployments and the like. He thought, Mike wouldn't be asking about those kinds of things. So it's out there and it's happening, and you could see how it could give false images or false speeches by candidates. But I think we have worked pretty hard since the 2016 election to deal with some of the dysfunction in social media, where we did have the Russians putting out, using trolls to create false narratives. But the really interesting thing is that you can't just sort of do this from scratch. There has to be something underneath that you're actually causing the chaos. So one of the reasons in 2016 that we had a problem is we actually had some real tensions inside the United States, the educated versus the uneducated, those who felt that they had prospects and those who didn't, racial tensions, and then you could exploit them. So I always say I want the technologists to give us the very best chance that they can, that we won't get these kinds of these problems from the technology itself. But we also have got to do a better job of making sure that there isn't that cesspool, if you will, to exploit. And that's not a problem for the technologies. Technologies are rarely the cause of a problem. They almost always can exacerbate a problem. And that, I think, is what we're facing in this realm.
Condi, I know that one of your one of the initiatives that you're highly interested in at Hoover, at the Hoover Institution, is kind of focused at assuring that we provide a future that assures the open and free exchange of ideas, absent identity politics and cancel culture. Could you share what you're doing there and the programs that you're putting in place at Hoover?
Sure. Let me just start biographically that I was born in segregated Birmingham, Alabama. My parents and I couldn't go to a movie theater or to a restaurant until the Civil Rights Act passed when I was more than 8 years old. I lost a kindergarten classmate in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. So I don't see the United States of America through rose-colored glasses. And I used to tell people when I would go out and talk about democracy, don't think that I think the United States has been perfect. But the one thing that I think we have been good at is getting better over time. I think that we have done that because we have had a kind of common identity and a common purpose. And that common purpose was to allow each and every generation to feel that they were getting better, that their kids, that their children would be better off than they were. And it meant that you weren't a prisoner of either your class, nor were you a prisoner of the circumstances of your birth. And you most certainly, as time went on, were not a prisoner of the color of your skin. In fact, it might or might not have been the most important thing about you in a particular point in time. And so the problem with identity politics is that I think it reduces us all to a kind of single variable about who we are. That the most important thing is that you're black or you're Native American or you're Hispanic. And that runs headlong into the idea that you can come from any background and through common purpose you can get to a better future. And so that's why I think identity politics is particularly problematic, by the way. I really don't want 7-year-old Joey to worry about what his ancestors did to 7-year-old Bobby's ancestors. I'd actually rather that they just think they each play baseball really well. And so the more that you have identity politics, the more you constrain the ability of people to progress. The other problem that it creates is that now we all start walking on eggshells around each other because I don't want to offend you. One of the things I tell my students all the time is, you know, you actually don't have a constitutional right not to be offended. That wasn't written into the Constitution. So if you find yourself in the company of somebody who's offended you, why don't you, before you organize the university on White Plaza to protest the fact that you've been personally offended, why don't you turn to the person next to you and say, you know, that was offensive. Then you can have a discussion about it. And oh, by the way, it's really important that you, if you are constantly in the company of people who say amen to everything you say, find other company. Because you will never test your own ideas. You might have to accept that you might actually be wrong about something, but you'll never know that if you only live in an echo chamber where everybody allows you to think very highly of your own opinion. And so we've broken down what democracies have got to do. Madison called it contestation. You have to constantly contest ideas. You have to constantly mobilize evidence. You have to constantly argue with those who might think differently. And you have to constantly remind yourself that just because they think differently, they're not morally corrupt. And we've lost that in our democracy, and we need to get it back.
Condi, on behalf of all of our friends and colleagues here, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your service to the nation. And thank you for helping us host this event at C3 AI.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.